This is not how I wanted it to be. You separated from your family. I have fears, Ruth. Not just about this, but my uncle.
You can't take us all this way to tell me you have fears.
Not for me, for you. For everything I am asking you to sacrifice. Can you even imagine a life in Africa?
Yes. We'll take it moment by moment, won't we? Together.
And that's a clip from A United Kingdom. It's directed, of course, by Amma Asante, who's back on the show. Hello, Amma, how are you?
Hi, Simon. I'm
it's
really
done.
well.
The film is done.
It's finished.
It's almost out there.
I'm so
it's out
relieved.
today.
Yeah, I'm relieved.
So is that the main sentiment that you get when a movie finally hits? I mean, is it nervousness? Is it a thrill? Is it terror?
It's all of the above, Simon. It's such a strange set of emotions and feelings to go through. I mean, first of all, the first thing is from the writing point of view. And Guy Hibbert wrote this script.
Yes.
But when I'm writing my own work, I always think I'm going to die before I get to the end of the script. Like literally, I think something's going to happen to me. I'll never get to the end.
I say not of old age.
No. Like I literally just think something will happen to me and I won't be able to complete it. Then the other side, when you're making a film, is it feels like, for me, like there's this huge mountain to climb, and you have no sense of how far up the mountain you've gotten until you finish completely. You know, you've locked, you've gone to Prague, you've recorded the music, you know, the score, and suddenly it's finished, and suddenly you're there, you're at the top of the mountain, and you're just relieved. You're breathless and you're relieved. Of course, sitting with the first audiences to watch it always gives you a sense of fulfillment in some ways, hopefully, and that's what I felt certainly when we played the film recently to our first British audience. But it's exhausting.
And when did you lock? How long ago?
Oh, so we locked in July 2016.
If you were to watch it again now, would you think, oh, could I just go back and just...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm such a woman. I'm such a girl that I think of it like a dress on a mannequin. And I think, I could take that bit in a bit. I could take the hem up slightly. I could do this. You know, you constantly feel like that for a while, I think, afterwards.
Before we go any further, I'm going to read you an email which came from a listener, Jen Cresswell.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Please pass on everyone's love and gratitude to Amma for being an amazing director. So you can get this isn't going to be a tough question at the end of this.
No.
Okay?
Oh, that's so lovely.
And for creating such wonderful films. And thank you, Wittertainment, for featuring and promoting a female director so prominently. Amma Asante is a true role model for all people, especially for young women. And it helps that the show follows her career closely so everyone can see Amma's hard work, dedication and overcoming of hurdles in a very difficult industry in an intelligent and determined manner. I hope you're not welling up, by the way.
I am.
Amma and Wittertainment make a great team, and I cannot wait to see United Kingdom. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. Thank you for being so wonderful, Amma. Also, Amma has a great sense of humour, which I love. Her laugh is in league with Chuckles Branner. Anyway, thank you very much. Anyway,
I'm going to try not to laugh now. I'm halfway between laughing and wanting to blubber. Thank you so much for that lovely email. I have to say that for me, it's emails like that and the response that I get that keeps me going, to be really honest with you, because it is a struggle in the industry. It is really hard. You're getting a movie financed and every day you don't know what hiccup you're going to come up against. You know, you lose a financier and you may have 5 financiers and you lose one, and suddenly the film is in complete jeopardy or collapses. And you never know whether that labour of love that you've been working on for 10 years, as I have with my next one, is simply going to come to an end as a dream. So it's those moments when you get a lovely message like that you just think, yeah, I'm going to keep going because it's worth it.
So
yes.
Just sketch briefly the story of Seretse Khama and Ruth Williams, which you're telling in this film.
Yes. So Seretse Khama was an African king in waiting in a country at the time known as Bechuanaland, and today we know it as Botswana, who is sent to England to finish his studies in London, and obviously to then return back to his home and you represent his people to the British powers that be, rulers who literally own his country really as part of the British Empire. It's a colony, it's a protectorate. And things don't really go according to plan. He comes to Britain, he's about to finish those studies, and just as he's about to return, he falls in love with a white woman from Blackheath, lower middle class woman called Ruth Williams, who works for Lloyd's Insurance as a clerk. and he decides with her that they will return to Bechuanaland and she will be his white queen. So the film is not the story of how they fall in love. It's not so much about that at all. It's about the fallout that happens once they do, because Bechuanaland has a really interesting location. It's right next door to South Africa. This is 1947, and it's right at the time when South Africa is about to enshrine the laws of apartheid into its everyday life and system. And so this couple returning, black and white couple returning, is seen as a real finger up, actually, at the South African government, who is saying black and white must live separately. So it's timing yes. and location that are crucial.
And it's not just the South African government that has a problem with this. And there's a moment where Ruth Williams says to Seretse Khama, "We misjudged this."
Yes.
And that is because everyone is against it. You know, it's
everyone.
The British government. We see some sort of unpleasantness in the UK, and then they go over to Bechuanaland and the tribes are against it. I mean, there's no one who's saying, yes, this is a good idea.
Absolutely. And this is the real story. I mean, the reality is that when Seretse did return with his wife, with Ruth, to Bechuanaland, his uncle, who was the regent at the time, you know, standing in for Seretse until Seretse was ready to take up his full-time duties as king, was livid that not only should he return with an outsider, but an outsider that was a white woman, and a white woman who came from the very world that were the rulers of his country. So this is a film that's about protecting tradition. It's a film about a status quo that was about to be shifted. I love films that are set at times times of transition in many ways, and that's precisely what this is. You know, Britain is 2 years post-war, and there's hope, but it's definitely still pulling itself up by the bootstrings. And we have Prime Minister Attlee in power at the time, who has been given a mandate by the British public to be responsible for them and to make decisions for them. There's a Cold War. Britain has an atomic bomb program, and it needs uranium for this, but it needs cheap uranium because it's not wealthy at this point. And South Africa has cheap uranium and has been providing this to Britain for a period of time. And when South Africa says to Britain, if you let that couple, you let that man from your colony and that British woman set foot on African soil together as man and wife, we will withhold a number of things from you, including this cheap uranium, which of course could possibly put the people of Britain at risk. So hopefully we get moments of seeing this story from many points of view, but essentially it is the story of how Ruth and Seretse's love battles through an entire world that seems against them.
When we spoke to you, when we were judging the Well Done You competition,
yes.
You were a judge for that. You were in Botswana, and you were talking about the incredible heat and the difficulty that threw up as a filmmaker and as a crew. Can you just give us
Simon, it got hotter. I mean, when I'd spoken to you, I realised that was good heat. I mean, it got up to over 50 degrees. And the thing for me was that I was very clear. I knew that I had learned to think in the cold. I knew how to handle myself in the cold and still be creative and still produce material. But this was so hot that the air you were breathing, the very air, it felt like I was just swallowing a tasteless cup of tea constantly because it was that warm. And the first day we filmed, we were in the real house that Ruth and Seretse lived in when they went to Africa as man and wife, and we had lovingly put it back together. And it was a beautiful home, but we had to tent it in order to control the light. So it was something like 54 degrees inside the house with lights. We had it's a scene that we shoot with Rosamund Pike listening to the radio with a number of African elders, male elders around us. So there were about 50 people in the living room, not including crew. And at that point, it was the first day and I thought, I'm questioning whether I'm going to get to the end of this.
I saw one reviewer talk about the film and making some comparison with Richard Attenborough and saying it's the kind of film that Richard Attenborough would have loved. And it has that kind of epic feel. It is a story that sort of means something. It's standing for something. It's surprising. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, first of all, that was Pete Bradshaw from The Guardian, who I have a huge respect for. And I was obviously delighted with that comparison. No, I was, well, my heart skipped a beat slightly because I'm a huge Attenborough fan. And of course, I was looking at Attenborough's work David Lean, you know, many of those classic filmmakers who made the classic films when we think about classic movies today. And therefore, to be compared to them is wonderful. But of course, I want to make beautiful films that mean something. I want to make beautiful films that create discussion and inform debate, and that hopefully you can see more than once, that you're not watching and thinking, yeah, I get that, but you say, wow, I didn't see that the first time I watched it. In many ways, that's the dream. And I don't know how many films I'll make in my life. I suspect it won't be that many, but I would like for them all to be pieces of entertainment and art that leave some kind of mark on you. That's what I hope for.
It sounds as though you're thinking of retiring, which obviously you're not,
I'm
because
not.
You're just starting. And you were you were hinting just at the start of our conversation about your next project.
Yes.
So what's this new one?
My next film is called Where Hands Touch. I've talked often, because I think it's really important to talk about not necessarily the failures, but the moments where hope seems lost. And this film was about to be shot in 2009. We had a big launch at Cannes, and then it collapsed at the last minute. I'm glad that I stuck with it, and we have some amazing financiers on board who've come on board because they believe in me, because they believe in the project. It's a coming of age story about a young biracial girl who is being raised under the Third Reich in Germany in 1944 Berlin, and who falls in love with a Hitler Youth boy. And it's the story of these two really trying to navigate a world that has gone absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Wow. So you are going to be engaged with this one for quite a while.
I am. We start filming in October, and and then I'll be back into the edit again, which I love.
So I've got 45 seconds. So 2 questions from listeners.
Yes.
Karen, these are proper questions, not love letters.
Okay.
Karen Garberg, would you like to direct a Bond film?
Yes.
Great. Dawn Stillwell, how cool was it to have Prince host the Bell after party and perform?
Wow, it was beyond, honestly, I still look back and I still have to pinch myself. It was beyond cool, but it was also beyond gracious and kind, and such a loving act from him. I saw cynical people who were never moved by anybody.
In the film industry, surely
In the film industry, in my audience, who were boogieing away double beat to single beat music, loving each other, hugging each other, kissing each other. It was such a beautiful, not only endorsement of the film and of my work and of Gugu's work and the whole team, but also celebration, a kind of completion of all the hard work.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Amma. Thank you very much. And don't leave it until your next film comes out, which will probably be like 3 years away.
I would love to be back soon,
before
if
you
possible.
come back. Amma Asante, thank you very much.
Thank you.